Uh,
So, welcome back. We have a great panel today because we're going to discuss things that perhaps others in the media are not really focusing on. And what I think is important right now is that we have a specialist, Dr. Raheb, who is a, a Persian and so knows exactly what's happening perhaps in the Middle East right now. And we have Pam back, and Pam is really very much looking at how things are aligning in our world via the spiritual world, so to speak, because they are somehow or another related. And no one's discussing these things and no one's talking about these things. So what I'd like to do today is to start off by saying, how did we get here? How did we get to war in Iran? Trump suddenly, gave the State of the Union on Tuesday, talked about Iran for 2 minutes. Suddenly, we're at war on Saturday morning, and he's in Mar-a-Lago playing golf. Okay, so let's begin. Maybe we'll start with Pam first. Pam, is there anything that you think happened in the stratosphere, so to speak, that kind of led to this decision? Was this known perhaps? Um, anyway, let me offer it to you. You can let me know.
I- Okay,
We
now
can't
you
hear
need
you.
to.
Sorry.
the perspective I give is an astrological perspective. And I'm looking at what the mundane astrologers are looking at in astrology. Mundane astrology is when you're looking at the geopolitical uh, situation around the world and how usually the outer planets are making a difference and creating these historical times. So at this particular time, especially from 2023 to 2033, is a huge, huge time of change. And we can go into more detail at that time, but to specifically speak about war and things that are happening right now, we just had a major transit of two outer planets, Saturn and Neptune, which moved from Pisces, where they've been for the last 20, 30 years, whatever, into Aries. Aries is the sign of war. Okay, thank you. And not only did they move in, they moved in together. They conjuncted means they came together at 0 degrees Aries, 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, which is Aries and a few others, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, is a world point. So it's an extremely significant degree in astrology. So Saturn, the planet of structure, and Neptune, the planet of ideas and ideologies, came together in Aries, the sign of war, or let's say action, fire, things happening. And we're in the year of the fire horse. So when these two came together, one could predict that ideologies will be changing and structures around ideologies will also change. And the mundane astrologers and other astrologers have been talking that war will break out at this time. They've been talking about it for a while. So this is no surprise to that group of folks. And yes, there are triggering things. One could look at the eclipse. Some of the things like this can trigger things. But overall, I'm looking at the bigger picture of the outer planets and the energies that get brought in by that.
Okay, and that's really fascinating. And what I'd like to do now is to pass it on to Mitra, who is going to bring us back down to earth, so to speak. And
Right.
and from her perspective, what do you think, Mitra, besides the planets lining up, et cetera, what do you think
Yeah.
got us into this mess, so to speak?
Right. It's interesting you should say that because apparently to the stories that were leaked out, the president of the United States had decided when Netanyahu was here, it was going to go to war. That's just the way it is. So he gave this false sense of security as a false sense of diplomacy. So once again, on the middle of a negotiation, we came in and boom, stab him in the back. Just the way it is. I mean, the Omani foreign minister was standing right next to the vice president, and we lied again. So it has had massive repercussions, not just in the global south, which is really non-Eurocentric, not Western world, but even within the Western world. And so what you have now is, I think, in a moment that we said it would come, we have always said for a number of years now, the war between the Iranians and the Israelis had to happen. But whether the US would be involved or not would be a different thing, because I think, and I think you can tie that to a Pam, because this is no longer about Iran and Israel, Iran and US, but it's really about the arrival of a new world system. You know, you had centuries of Western system. I think that's beginning to shift now. And for me, the amazing thing, all of this, is the one that's benefiting the most without firing a single shot, whether it's political, whether it's military, whether it's economic, is China. Automatically, right? Not just because they were reserving the gas for like months and months, but what they're doing right now is that they made it very clear they're not allowing any of the ships to go through. They're not using their ships. They're giving the Iranians what they wanted. They're seeing in the global south as the moral order, because they have condemned the United States for an illegal war. And by illegality, it wasn't just because it was toward of negotiations, but also because the barbarity of killing civilians on purpose. That's the key. So I think I agree with that. You know, I'm not an astrologer, I'm not an expert in that, but I also realize this is no longer, it's, you know, it's not just about Iran and Israel. It's beyond that.
No.
It's beyond that.
No,
think
I
it's
agree
beyond that.
100% with you. I think for me personally, I think it was almost a slap in the face when you're sitting down in Geneva having a discussion and a discussion about what to do next, and suddenly they're like bombing you. Number two, I find it very interesting that there's very little mention of the 180 schoolgirls who were shot and who were bombed and killed. If that had happened in New York City, if that had happened in London, if that had happened anywhere else, everybody would be up in arms retaliating. I think it's disgusting. You know, for this premise that you say we're going to go in and free the people, then you kill all these young girls. However, I have to disagree with you on one subject, and that is, and I don't know exactly. It's like you. I mean, I don't know, but I wonder honestly if China, you can say that China is benefiting. I think it's interesting to me that China has not come out and vocally said anything. I think it's interesting that China, you say they have plenty of reserves, but don't forget we had Venezuela, oil cut off there, and Venezuela was one of the biggest transporters of oil for China. Now you have Iran, which was the biggest. So I wonder, and I don't think that there's a plan behind it, so don't misunderstand me. I don't think that Trump has a plan or a strategy or anything. I wonder if this is actually hurting China, at least in the long run. So let me pass it back to you, Mitra, or Pam, if you want to take the helm, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mitra. You're muted.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
So no, because you know why? First of all, China condemned it from day one. They were like, what are you doing? You're unleashing hell on earth. Second, China has been putting oil reserves for 4 months. They have enough oil reserves for the next 4 months. They also have Russia on the other side. So they don't have to worry about that. And what China is doing is pretty much not dictating, making it clear to the global south, to the non-Euro Western world, and now to the Western world. That's the difference between us and the United States. We will never betray you. We will never stab you in the back. Because like I said before, this isn't just about that. So when you have China coming in, and we said that before, when you have China coming in saying, I'm not putting my ships in, I don't think so. It's not because they care about what happens to their boats. It's because they realize US is going to pay a massive price. So they've got the oil cheap, already reserved. Our oil prices have gone up. We can't go to the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea, which is 1/3 of our trade. People need to realize that 37% of American trade comes from the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. That's gone now. And then, so what you have now is you add the insurance rate and you add, and that's what people don't understand, the Chinese ships not going through the Chinese ships. That will have massive economic, but it has massive military implications because with the war, the Iranians are getting hammered in Tehran. I get that. But they have hit every American base, one after the other, every single day. And so, as we said before, the American base, it's like a spider web. When one is hit, they're all gone. So we don't have access to those bases. When you have that, and when you have China saying, I'm not bringing my ships, it's important because the significant majority of our goods are transported on China's what? Containers. The Costco, they're not coming in. So We don't have that as well. So when people say, woohoo, we're hitting the Capitol, we're killing people, that's what people want. They're celebrating on the street, which is pretty sick. What they don't understand is this is just the beginning.
Well, I have
Just
to,
the beginning. So,
okay. First of all, I don't think anybody, I'm sorry, I have not seen
oh yeah, they are.
anybody.
Yeah, I'm on the social media. The anti-government Iranians are
Yeah,
dancing.
I'm talking about over here. I'm
Oh,
talking
no.
about
Well,
over
in the
here
US,
because
I'm referring to, yeah.
because this is our war. This is what we started.
Yeah.
And my personal view is nobody is celebrating in the streets. Exactly the opposite. People are demonstrating in the streets because they are so pissed off.
Oh, no. Excuse me. I
Okay.
was referring to the anti-Iranian groups, Mr. Pahlavi and the
Okay.
Mujahideen Khalq
Okay,
that
I'm
are
sorry.
referring they,
Okay.
which is the worst thing you could do. You have the Israeli flags and you're dancing that your people are getting killed.
But
Yeah, the
Mitra,
Iranian diaspora is celebrating on the streets here for sure. I've seen that.
No, but they're particular. You have the Judaic Iranian and that 15% that are pro-Pahlavi, not the rest, because they all have families. They're like, whoa, you're killing children. So I see the social media. I don't like what I see. It's a lot of anger. But like Vicky said, I apologize. No American is celebrating kids getting killed. No one is. Yeah, you're absolutely
and as a
correct.
matter of fact, I think it's interesting. Okay, I think you and I kind of we both a little bit disagree about China, but that's neither here nor there. I agree with you that Iran is extremely smart in saying, we're going to get you back and then we're going to hit your bases because that's where your stuff is located and that's where it's going to hurt you most. I also think right now the American people are upset because they also understand, quote unquote, sleeper cells. And there's a lot of angry people here who can justify a lot of anger within America for this stupidity. So what I see from my perspective here is that the American public is very upset about Trump doing this. So again, my question just to wrap this segment up is, how did we get here? What did we do to get here? Pam gave us a good description about how things are aligning. Mitra said we got here by kind of slapping the face of our alliances and saying, "Oh, no more discussion in Geneva. We're just going to go out there and do this." So, do you think it is a distraction because of the Epstein files? Because they were getting. Do you think so? Do you think that's why they did it?
It's interesting. I think there is an argument to be made. And I was watching a few days ago that there was Mr. Massey, Senator Massey, I apologize, Senator Massey, who basically said they had redacted some reports that the president was accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a young lady, like I think very young teenage lady, and they had removed that, and this was a distraction. I understand those who adhere to that perspective, and I think there's some credibility in a sense that you are trying to get away from the Epstein file. But, I think at this stage, it does not matter. You're here. You're not going to ask one. You're here. Let it go, bro. Let it go why you got here. Now you're here. For me, it no longer matters why I got here. For me now, what am I going to do to get out? Because it's great that you're celebrating. Woohoo, we're attacking the Capitol. Kids are being killed.
But no one is celebrating, Mitra.
No. I'm saying the military, we're winning. When you have Mr. Hatzad saying, yeah, we're doing it. But the people are saying you're killing women.
Nobody's listening to this idiot because they all, I know what you're saying.
I understand. You know what I'm saying. So what you have now is a very difficult situation for US. For me, I want to know what happens next week.
Okay, so this is what I want to bring you guys into, because we talked about a little bit about how we got here, and I think we can summarize by saying maybe it's a distraction, maybe whatever, but no matter what, I think we can all agree that it was an extremely stupid decision for America. So I think let's talk. We have about 7 minutes left, so let's talk about what now. Let's take it a week. We don't have to go for a month. We can just go for a week. Yeah. Pam, in a week, what's going to be going on? What do you think?
I don't have a clear answer on that. Astrologically, I mean, from my own perception of what I'm reading, I think we're going to stay there for a while. I think this is something got started here that is not going to be easily ended. And it seems to be metastasizing. And I don't see an easy way out unless Trump decides, well, let's just call it a victory and pull out now, which is possible. So supposedly he's the type of person that doesn't like war. I think he might be wondering what he got himself into, and so I think it could go either way.
Mitra, what do you think?
Well, I think that answer depends what's going to happen to two different countries. Forget about Iran for a moment. I'll forget about Israel. For me, what I'm looking at is Jordan, whether the kingdom of Jordan is going to fall, not the Hashemite kingdom, King Abdullah. Is that going to fall? Because I can see the tribal lines. They're blocking the roads. The other one is Bahrain. If Bahrain and King Abdullah falls, that's massively important, massively important. And, the question is, we could leave. For me, my question would be, yeah, we're going to leave, but will the Iranians allow us to leave? Remember, we have been saying this for a year now. The Chinese, Iranian, Russian alliance knew this was going to happen. They had prepared their public. They knew what was going on. They knew people would get killed. We discussed that before. We discussed in a meeting. We said they could go like 5,000, 1,000. They knew people would get killed. So for me, the question becomes, number one, what's going to happen to King Abdullah and what's going to happen to Emir of Bahrain? Once you have an idea, by next week when we come back, then we're going to know where we are. Because if King Abdullah is replaced, and there is a lot of screaming, particularly from the Hawitat and the Beni Hassan. Beni Hassan are massive. They're the biggest tribe. And remember, these tribes are not just in Jordan. They're in Saudi Arabia. They're in Qatar. Their mishpucha is there. So for me, that's exceptionally important. But for me, the Iranians warned, we're going to blow up. Whether you agree or disagree with Iran, it takes lower male anatomy, bro, to take on 9 nations at the same time. So I will wait for that answer next week. When we come back next week, God willing, we come back next week, I want to see where is King Abdullah and where is the Emir of Bahrain. If they're not there or they're hanging on, then this. But I will tell you this, the United States, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is moving many of its people out of Jordan. And Vicky, perhaps you can verify that. I think they are. And that is not just because of the base, that's because we're not getting supplies. Because the Iranians are hitting the Jordanian base, and the reports that are coming out from underground is the border between Israel and Jordan, where you get the goods coming, like the borders from UAE and Saudi Arabia coming to Jordan, they're blocked. They're not allowing goods go through. The only goods that are going through are the ones for Jordanian people. And those goods are meant for what do you call it, for Israel. If the goods are not getting through, we have a problem. So if the goods are going to the base, we have a problem.
Okay,
they're not going to go through.
So you say that watch Bahrain, watch Jordan.
Next week. By next week.
My idea is this. We saw that gas prices skyrocketed, but what I think is it's just a bit of a scare. It's nowhere near to what happened in the 70s under Carter.
Well, that's different.
No, it's different. No, but what I'm trying to say is we had a little bit of a scare with gas prices. I mean, let's be honest, you talk about China being self-reliant for 4 months. I mean, America has loads of oil and they've just seized all the Venezuelan oil. So I'm not worried about that. I think what my issue and my worry is that this once again is a war over there, and it's not quote unquote affecting common day people every day like it is when you are literally in the just of the war. And I think that is a big thing. My premise for what's going to happen in the next week is, and perhaps I'm wrong, I have to say I agree a little bit with Pam. I think we're going to have a taco situation. Trump once again will chicken out, because I think he will realize he will probably make it like, yeah, we did enough damage. We hurt the nuke area. Remember, like 2 months ago, they obliterated everything.
Yeah, but
we done our job. Now we're going back home again. And what he will have done, in essence, is walk away and create a big fat mess in the Middle East, and especially against Israel. So we've got.
I think so. If I could just add to that for
1 minute.
1 minute. But it's not mattering we have our own oil. We're part of the international community. And it's not just about oil. It's about your goods coming from Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. That's going to impact that. It's
We don't
about-
need any, we don't need these goods right now, Mitra. We're talking about a week or a month. We don't need that
Excuse me.
stuff now.
No. It's not the point. The goods are not going through. We're part of the market. And you know how the system works. They're already raising prices in Miami. They're already raising prices
they're
in New
not.
York. Oh, no. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
they're not.
They're not.
No,
Listen,
they're not.
if I may, they're saying the goods are coming out. The insurance rate is already going up. The goods are not coming through. You know how the business works. So what I see, it's no longer just about the price. What I see, it's also our debt. What I see, it's the stock market going down, which is extremely important for the president.
It's back
Now,
up
you
again
can-
today.
No, I don't even care about even that.
You just said the stock market went down. It
No,
went
for
down
the
one day. It's back
president,
up
it goes
again.
down, it goes up. No. It's for me, it's obviously the trade, the economy. And for me, is the president doesn't have that luxury. We got what we want because the Iranian destroyed all of our bases.
That I agree with. That I
It's
agree with.
gone. So
That I
think
agree
you said
with.
We won. What did you win?
No,
Everything is
no.
blown up?
That I agree with. I
Yeah,
think
well, I
he's
don't
gonna.
know.
I think he's gonna say it like we all know. He's gonna say some bullshit and walk away and create a big fat mess. All right,
It's already done. Yeah. So,
it's already done.
I don't know. Honestly, that's the only thing I'm thinking. I see your point. I think you have an excellent point, and so does Pam. I think you both have excellent points.
But
I
let's
would
see
watch
next
those
week.
Two nations. Yeah,
Let's
we'll
see next week. Let's see if he gets out. But also, Mitra, what I'd like to see is exactly what you said: Bahrain, Jordan, and also let's see what happens with Bibi because he's hiding out in some
In
bunker in
Germany.
Berlin.
Yeah, why are you
What the
hiding in
hell?
Germany? At least that old man from Iran died with his, with his
What the
family
hell?
out of his country. Why
I know.
Why you
Now,
hiding
listen,
in
also,
Germany?
when we come back next week, there's a lot more to the story astrologically. We're in one of the times of great change that's only happened once a century for the last, 300 years. So we're going to talk more about that too.
Okay. I thank you all. I'm going
Thank
to pause recording.